and welcome. My name is Meepolis and this is Literally Graphic. The comic I wanted to talk to you about today is She-Hulk, Volume 1, Law and Disorder, which I really liked, and I was going to try and read the second volume before I reviewed it, because there's only the two, but I don't think it will come in before I leave for Christmas. So, She-Hulk, Volume 1. What did I think about it? Well, I thought that all of the characters were like super interesting and not what you expected, and really brought a lot to the table and just interesting and exciting. There was never a dull moment because things just kept on happening, and it was all really funny and interesting and really kept my interest. This is definitely one that I didn't really put down. I just kind of flipped through the whole thing at once, which was fun. But unlike some of the other comics I'm reading right now that also have a lot of things all happening at once, I thought that Charlie's Soul, I believe it was, really kept everything moving forward in a really great way that just kind of showcases his skill. This is the only comic by him though that I've read, so I don't know, maybe he's horrible. He was juggling a lot of things. I never felt overwhelmed by what was going on. I had a really easy time following everything. It wasn't super complicated. So yeah, I thought that was rather, skillful of him, and I really thought that that was definitely a really strong part about the volume. The art, on the other hand, was a bit, it was an issue for a lot of other people too, I think. It started out looking very kind of retro in a way, I guess, but very flat. But again, it kind of matched the tone of the story, which is a little bit silly at times. But then it switched to a even flatter, more angular version about halfway through when they switched artists, and that was a bit jarring at first, but I have to say that neither of these styles turned She-Hulk into a sexual object. So that's cool. That's cool, yeah, especially because the artists kind of were obsessed with looking up at characters from the floor, both male and female again, so that wasn't a huge issue. And it could have been, considering how Jennifer's powers kind of render her half naked half the time, so that's good. Definitely kudos for that. Jennifer in general was just a really cool, awesome chick to be hanging out with through reading this novel. She's really cool, collected. I mean, obviously these challenges are real that she's facing, and she gets kind of, she doesn't always succeed, everyone doesn't always like her, but at the same time, she, much like Batgirl, is a very mature person who kind of rolls with it and kind of comes out on top and, knows how to handle herself. It was really funny because I don't know that much about Trish, except she was in Jessica Jones, but then in this comic, the Trish Hellcat character is very much more like Jessica Jones than the Trish character was in Jessica Jones. She gets really drunk and they decide to go raid this place that S.H.I.E.L.D's kind of looking into, and they end up having to defeat these giant robots. And that's kind of why it reminded me a lot of Rat Queens, is I thought that there was kind of this reckless abandon that definitely felt a lot similar, even if obviously the characters are very different, the genres are very different, and I thought it was grounded in a lot of the things about Rat Queens that I really appreciated, but handled it in slightly a more mature way. Again, not to say that I thought that the boobage of Rat Queens was necessarily offensive, but at the same time I didn't think that the artist really had a clear idea of how to depict progressive female characters and not sexualize them, especially since his style is so much more sexual. It was kind of on the bar for me. It wasn't, and as I remember saying in the Rat Queens review, it still felt like the characters were a bit flat, and that you had the kind of crazy female characters and the grounded male characters, and the grounded male characters were, and it just wasn't necessarily fully endorsing the Rat Queens in the way that She-Hulk is definitely, like, she has fun, she's kind of crazy at times, and or at least Hellcat is and drags her into stuff. Yeah, she just seemed a lot more cool and collected, and the writer just seemed like maybe he had a slightly better idea of what he was doing, and definitely not just cashing in on the whole empowered female trope, which, I mean, we still need more of that because we are still so low that we are desperate for cash-ins. Yes! The covers, on the other hand, were a lot more of a mixed bag for me. Some of it was stylistic issues. I've decided what I really just don't like about some of the cover styles for Marvel and DC is that they're like I described it as kind of 3D before, but it's really when artists used gradients for shading rather than like lines. It's definitely a hallmark of very digital stuff, is that you now have these gradients, and I just really don't like it. It makes people look plasticky and shiny, and it's not my thing. But the covers were also a lot more sexual. They were much more sexual in nature, and while She-Hulk isn't a completely non-sexual character, it was more pin-up-y, and which again, it's certainly not the worst thing ever, and they're not as bad as, you know, watching random females half-clothed in their private bedrooms or something. It wasn't the worst I'd ever seen, but there's just such a disconnect between the covers and the insides. I can't help but feel like some people definitely probably ended up feeling cheated if they only saw the covers and didn't flip through, even just because the styles were so different and because of the sexual nature of the covers versus the insides. It just seemed like they were awfully disconnected, and the covers definitely had more of a male gaze in mind than the insides or the plots or anything, so But overall, I decided to rate this volume 4 out of 5 stars because I thought it was really fun, really excellent. You're not really going to see as much of the silly cover nonsense, but yeah, and I'm really excited about that second volume coming in, but I'm pretty sure it's going to come in when I'm away, so I'll have to cancel the request and request it again, which is just a pain. So I will hopefully see you again soon. Life continues to be crazy in a way that impedes my reading and writing and everything, so that's annoying. And as always, Literally Graphic is recorded on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation. I live here because of British colonization, Indigenous genocide, and more geographically specific, Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase, which was finalized in 1805 between representatives of the Crown and certain Mississauga peoples. This treaty was a lie and has since been broken many times over. Saying so reflects only my own small steps towards knowing the truth and does nothing for reconciliation.